quality legal service for over 26 years. We're a general practice firm and can handle any legal matter you may have for a reasonable fee. If you're involved in a car accident, starting a business, planning your estate, or need a criminal attorney, please call 631-681-1910 or email us at vivianilaw@aol.com for a free consultation. Get the justice you deserve. Contact the law office of Douglas Viviani at vivianilaw@aol.com.
This is Douglas Viviani. I'm here with David Cohen, and we are now continuing our semifinals of the best TV sitcom of all time. Our September silliness continues.
Yes, I'm excited. We're getting down to the wire.
Yes, just to review the procedure here, we're going to do the winner of the 1950s against the winner of the 1960s. Then we've got the winner of the 70s against the 80s and the winner of the 90s against the 2000s. We did have, of course, prior shows that announced those winners. Feel free to go back and listen to those on our podcast at everythingoldisnewagain.biz. We did try to be objective. Dave, do you want to read through those rules?
Yeah, sure. Quick? Just to refresh everybody's memory, the way we got here was we came up with a list of 6 questions. Basically, number 1, on a scale of 1 to 5, is the show consistently funny? Are there laughs every show? Number 2, longevity. Is it still funny today on reruns? Number 3, memorable quotes or routines or catchphrases that are still being used today. Number 4, are there iconic or lovable characters that are recognized? Number 5, so each of those get 1 point. Then number 5, did the show ever jump the shark? And if it did, you subtract 1 point. Sorry, let me just clear. So those first 5, I know we're getting really technical.
Here we go again.
Scale of, and I'm constantly
scale of 1 to 5 on those
Scale
first
of 1 to
5.
5. Now, once you get those, if the show jumped the shark, you subtract a point. If the show spawned a spinoff, it gets a point.
Right. Now, with these, we've passed through all of that already. We've gone through that. So now we going to add 3 more qualifications that we're going to now use for this show and the next show. That is, number 1, laughs per show. Number 2, memorable bits, and number 3, the timeliness of the show. Is the show still funny? That's how we're going to get there. I know Dave and I had a discussion. I think there was something you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I think as we're going through these finalists now, one thing that's important is sort of this intangible category. Like, this can't be totally subjective. I mean, there's got to be a little emotion to it. Certain shows, for me anyway, growing up as a kid, or even today, spending time with my family, certain shows just strike a chord with me. I don't understand why.
So you're going to be or you have an idea that there's some subjective point of view here, that an emotional, carryover, if you will, from your childhood or when you saw the show.
Exactly.
Originally?
Yes. So it's not 100% objective. Sorry, that there is some subjectivity to it. I can't.
Yeah, I'm going to say
that I can help myself.
You are the Dr. McCoy of TV sitcoms because you're going to be emotional with this. I have to be the Mr. Spock. It always goes back to Star Trek. You realize that, right?
I'm not a poster, Jim. I'm a doctor. Damn it.
But I'm going to have to say that I've got to. And I try to acknowledge, I do acknowledge what you've just said, but I try to be as objective as possible and logical as possible to go through this and come up with a clean result.
You can try, but there's going to be that little bit of, brings back great memories. You have an emotional attachment. That's all I'm saying.
Presuming I have emotions. You're exactly right, though. No, you're exactly right. But we'll try. I don't know. We'll see how we go through this, where that comes in. I think the listener is going to understand that, too, that, listen, there are shows when you were a kid you may have a nice feeling for, and that may carry you, forward with giving it better ratings, let's say, than a show that you're watching as an adult. I guess that's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's listen to The Honeymooners, which is the winner of the 1950s, and a little bit of that. Let's examine that show as it goes up against Get Smart. We'll see who wins with those two.
Good. I got it now, Lord. Hello, boy. I don't know anybody does the mambo. I don't do it. Norton doesn't do it. My grandmother never did it.
Who is the composer of Swanee River?
Ed Norton. You are a blabbermouth. All right, get up. Get up. There isn't room in this place for you and me.
There isn't room in this place for you and anybody.
Out of the way, girls. Some men are gonna do some drinking. Clear the field. Everything's going real fast. The table ain't level.
Still the same all around. It's good here.
Come on out of there, Harvey!
I never knew Davy Crockett was so fat.
I am the chef of the future. Oh, I can curry apple.
All right, that's about 10 clips right there of shows that I think that if you're a fan of sitcoms, you've seen The Honeymooners. I think if you listen to any of those clips, they open the door to a memory of the entire show, and you remember basically the entire show, what it was about, and the laughs.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could just start going through your day, and one of those clips or sayings will just pop up in your head.
And that's what's classic to me about this show, is that every show had not just one or two lines. It almost, let's just say, whatever, every third or fourth line that was said on the show was either setting up or a joke or a line that's really hysterical and memorable to this day. I might be wrong, but to me, and this is being objective, I can't say that show has a weakness other than it was on the air only for 39 episodes.
Right. The weakness is that there aren't a lot of people probably out there that have seen it. I mean, we think that there are because you and I have, and people of our generation have, but, a lot of younger people have no idea what The Honeymooners is, and they should, because it was just,
That's the
really
beauty of our
funny.
show. I agree with you, we're trying to bring alive, and I've gotten some emails from people trying to acknowledge that we've brought alive, or at least brought topics to people's mind that they not necessarily think about and maybe would consider buying, let's say, a Beatles album. We talked about that in the past, or going to a Broadway show, or this, taking a look, giving it a chance, if you got an open mind, to listen to or see one of these episodes, even though they're black and white, God forbid.
Just because it's black and white doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, this is such a classic show, such a great show. I don't know how Get Smart will fare against it, although I do in my mind. As I sit here, let's listen to Get Smart first and see.
This is Smart. Maxwell Smart, Agent 86. Missed it by that much. The cone of silence.
The case I assigned 99 to has to do with the Gall formula.
But why is she in danger?
What?
Danger!
Food! What? Not what? Food! What?
That's Maxwell Smart, the control agent I told you about.
Now, we finish those clips with a recognizable voice. Who would that be? Did you know? A little trivia. Did you hear that last voice?
I did. I don't remember.
That, of course, is none other than Leonard Nimoy. We always have a little connection here and there.
The old Star Trek tie-in. No matter what subject we're talking about, Doug finds a way to bring Star Trek into it.
Nimoy did guest star on Get Smart, but I could tell you this, he was not funny. He was a straight man. He's never funny on television, just as an aside. But that doesn't make. Get Smart had some tremendous episodes, so a lot of fun, good feel, lines that people remember. One thing I wanted to bring out, which was a lot of fun going through this, looking at what happened in the episodes. Many times the character Get Smart is taking his shoe off in the corner somewhere, taking off the little bit of piece of the heel, and all of a sudden he's talking into his shoe phone. By the way, a rotary dial in the shoe phone, by the way. And of course now we have cell phones. All that is totally irrelevant.
Right.
But in its day, a lot of fun.
It was. And don't forget Barbara Feldon, also, as a kid. One of the reasons I watched Get Smart.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
For the beauty.
For the beauty of,
yes.
the show.
And a good love story. They eventually got married. And they eventually had I think they had a child. They had twins. If you remember,
I don't remember that
last
really.
season.
Wow.
Never jumped the shark. No. Very strong show. Buck Henry wrote it. Later on, went on to do a lot of other things. You can Google that. But he was on Saturday Night Live quite a bit as a guest host.
Plus, and again, it's you don't see it that much on TV these days in reruns. But they, a few years ago, they made another movie about it.
Right, and they with Steve Carell, and I mean, I just think that they had so many great characters. Jaime the robot. They did Cone of Silence. They did Miss Me by That Much. They had Bernie Capel as Siegfried. I don't know if you remember any of this. If you don't remember this, give it a watch. I think you'll really get enthralled with the episode.
Would you believe an angry mob of Boy Scouts?
Right, and of course, it all was a takeoff of 007, which was very, in the 60s, very serious, very strong.
Yes.
But this is a parody that really worked. So now we compare that to The Honeymooners.
Right.
So
because again, this is the 50s winner versus the 60s winner.
Correct. So the question really is, where does Get Smart, fare as against The Honeymooners? Dave, you want to give your opinion or what we came up with as a result, maybe?
Well, Yes, the honeymooners.
I don't know that that's a big surprise.
Knowing you, no, definitely not a surprise.
I had my hand in it. I put my thumb on the scale. Is that what they say?
Right, exactly.
But we really did vote on it, and it did come out, no doubt. Get Smart, it should not be disappointed, if you will, with that. But it is a tremendous opposition with the honeymooners. I think that show now makes the final three, which we'll talk about in the next show, in the finals, let's say, of the finals of the best comedy of all time. So we'll go out with the honeymooners theme and come on back.
Jackie Gleason.
This portion of Everything Old is New Again is sponsored by ResumeDrInc.com. When you're seeking to change your career, apply for a promotion, or are trying to find a job, your resume is the first thing that's seen that represents you to a potential employer. Make sure your resume makes a clear, concise, and professional impression of who you are so you can get that job interview. Send your current resume to ResumeDrInc@AOL.com for a free online review. You'll receive a timely reply with a reasonable quote to properly prepare your resume. Let them make sure you have a resume that will get you noticed. Send your resume or questions to ResumeDrInc@AOL.com. That's ResumeDrInc@AOL.com.
On November 13th, Felix Unger was asked to remove himself from his place of residence. That request came from his wife. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his friend Oscar Madison. Several years earlier, Madison's wife had thrown him out, requesting that he never return. Can two divorced men share an apartment without driving each other crazy?
The Odd Couple. That's one of the best beginnings of any show, and we'll do another show here on Everything Old is New Again about beginnings of episodes of shows.
Right, jingles.
But we are sitting here having the arguments you're going to love to have, continuing our semifinals of the best TV sitcom of all time.
So we have one of our final three, the honeymooners.
Yes.
Now we're pitting the 70s winner, the Odd Couple, versus the 80s winner,
which is Seinfeld.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a powerhouse. That's a blockbuster right there. Let's take a listen to a little bit of the Odd Couple, and we'll come back and discuss that.
Your orange juice, sir.
Did you remember to remove the pits?
I think so, Felix.
I don't like pits in my juice.
What?
Yep.
Where?
This bit. You can read his lips. I much fear serious trouble in the fuselage, Frederick.
You should never assume, because when you assume, you make an ass of you and me.
Here was a gourmet rotisserie.
Oh, a rotisserie. Oh, I always wanted that. Oh, we blew it.
Aristophanes is ridiculous.
The password is ridiculous.
Oh, Aristophanes. Ridiculous. You got it.
All of those great little snippets into some of the best of the Odd Couple episodes. Dave, any of those come out to play with your mind?
Oh, of course. I was still am a huge Odd Couple fan. And when I get a chance and I can actually walk in front of their fictitious building on Park Avenue, I do that. And it's pretty cool.
Do you grab a cab and put your hand on your back at that point?
Yeah. Stab the cigar with the umbrella. No, look, there's so many classic lines. Just the concept of Oscar and Felix, I think, even today can still be heard.
I think longevity on this, first of all, there's so many laughs per episode.
Yes,
so many.
That's a big.
And really classy show, never went anywhere, but good, clean fun as an aside.
Right.
And, really, the acting was beyond reproach. The show was a Gary Marshall show. In the first season, they did it without an audience. They did it as a soundtrack, and I met Jack Klugman, and he was describing how that really sucked the wind, if you will, out of the show. And when they added that audience, you could hear them laughing. It brought the both actors alive, and because they both were stage actors.
Well, stage actors, exactly.
So you can see that in that show, and the rapport between the two of them is tremendous.
Right.
And wonderful lines, great writing. There's only 1 or 2 episodes that I would say that I would not watch again. I really love that show.
Exactly.
So many bits on game shows. They did such creativity.
Plus all the guest stars that used to come on. I think that it actually wasn't doing too well in the ratings. So Jack Klugman and
Tony
Randall started inviting some of their celebrity friends to actually come on to the show, which to me were some of the best episodes that they did. Howard Cosell, famous opera singers.
Yeah,
and
they went on Password. They went on Let's Make a Deal. That's some of what we heard
Monty
there.
Hall.
Memorable, great stuff. Let's hear its competition.
Yellow. What delay industries?
No! Bear delay! Say bear delay!
And you want to be my latex salesman?
He's secretly referred to as the soup Nazi.
I didn't get any bread.
Just forget it. Let it go.
Excuse me, I think you forgot my bread.
What? No soup for you. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not at all.
Yes, a man gave you...
Man gave me a massage.
So?
I think it moved.
The man's ear. A brassiere for a man. Hey, George, what do you like better? The bro or the man's ear?
I mean, there are endless lines. Just like the Honeymooners. Every episode's got lines that are memorable. No,
right. I think even more so, but only because Seinfeld was on for so much longer.
Absolutely,
but
no doubt.
Yeah.
But in the same vein, in that each episode clearly has at least one line that you're going to remember.
And just a reminder, the reason that Seinfeld is in the 80s and not the 90s is because technically, and these were the parameters of the rules we put together. It started in 1989,
right?
So it's an 80s sitcom.
But what a creative show! Where there was a show about nothing, as they spoke about. Then they actually did a parody of themselves in that the character on the Seinfeld show, which was Seinfeld, sold his show, and they had to cast the show with other actors. And that little routine about George getting the massage was done by Jeremy Piven from Entourage, who interpreted that sort of a different way. But just the parody of itself, just such creative writing.
Right.
Beyond belief. So we have to compare the two and come up with a result. I think the result on that one, close, but I really think that Seinfeld overcomes.
I agree. And that's where we ended up. Seinfeld beat out. So Odd Couple is gone.
Exactly. So now we're going to go to the 1990s versus 2000. Everybody Loves Raymond.
Why has God put us here?
Because... What?
Why are we here, Daddy?
Yeah, I heard you. Okay, that's a good question. Well, honey... It's very crowded up there. Remember when we went to Disney World, how crowded that was? Huh? I mean, it was fun, but it was too crowded, right? So God, he sends us down to Earth for a little while to ease the heavenly congestion.
This is, I think... Everybody Loves Raymond at its best. This is a show that wasn't heavily laden with serious themes or, a message. On the other hand, they weren't afraid to go there in a real fun way, but talk about life in general, not nothing. This was a show about something, but was fun.
Right. Even when they did tackle some serious subjects, they put enough humor in it where it really didn't get way down or take itself too seriously.
And don't all of us either have or know of a mother-in-law like this?
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, no, not me.
Let's not go there. Let's change the subject real quick.
When was your last menstrual period?
Oh, next question.
I'll put in progress. Okay. Moving to psychiatric disorders, list all major behavioral diagnoses, e.g. depression, anxiety, etc.
Oh my God, what the hell does this have to do with my stupid shoulder?
Episodes of subpsychotic rage.
Ass.
Possible Tourette's.
Big Bang Theory, still on the air currently. A big hit, was renewed for 3 years at a clip right now. Going to be on the air at least 13 years. Brought the idea of being a nerd, if you will, into the mainstream and fun.
Yes,
and more of a cerebral, if you will, type of comedy. No,
yeah, it's a little bit cerebral. Although they talk about sex a lot. They really do. But the humor is a little heady, but still, the characters are so well defined, so funny, the way they interact with each other. So this is coming down to the 90s versus the 2000s. Everybody Loves Raymond versus the Big Bang Theory.
Right, and I think Big Bang Theory versus Raymond is another tough one.
Very tough.
Because, I mean, Raymond is something that a whole family watches and does identify with one of or other of these characters, and we all lashed or grappled with that. We all kind of put our claws into a character, and we watched that show identifying with that one character, and none of them disappointed.
Right. They didn't. You were one of those two brothers. I mean, this is sort of a male-centric, I understand, but, they had the favorite brother and the brother who wasn't the favorite, and that's a very common theme.
But what wife doesn't have a problem every so often with, with what that wife dealt with, and that wife, as we saw in our show from the 1990s, stood up for herself, was a woman of a modern woman, and very funny. And so it's tough. Big Bang, though, has a different dynamic, but is very much a fun show. But I don't think either of these shows don't have the memorable bits or memorable lines as we just spoke about Seinfeld and Honeymooners. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not great shows.
No, they're not. Just because you don't remember a catchphrase or a scene doesn't mean that you're not sitting there and laughing a lot during the 30 minutes.
I think this shows from the 90s forward. Honestly, I think the development of comedy or sitcoms went away from bits and went away from catchphrases, really, is more to the point.
Right.
You don't hear, the Jimmy Walker "What's Happening" line every episode. You don't hear Fonzie saying "A" every episode. Sheldon doesn't say the same thing every episode on Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah, it's much more creative. So let's think about it hard, and we've got to come up with our winner. And the winner is The Big Bang Theory. So our final three, which we will deal with next time, is The Honeymooners versus Seinfeld versus The Big Bang Theory. Come on back to Everything Old is New again. This is going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you on the other side.
Was in a hot, dense state that nearly 14 billion years ago expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool, Neanderthals developed tools, we built a wall. We built the pyramids, math, science, history, unraveling the mystery.